Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step." So you've got big dreams, right? You're ambitious, you want to achieve success, and ultimately you want to live the life you've always envisioned. But there's a problem, you're stuck in a cycle of laziness. You know exactly what you should be doing, but you just don't do it. This leads to guilt because deep down, you know you're capable of more. Over time, that guilt builds up days, weeks, months, until it turns into acceptance. Then, the new year rolls around, and you find yourself setting the same goals as last year. You start strong, fueled by motivation and maybe a little delusion, but before long, procrastination sneaks in like that uninvited guest who always overstays their welcome. Soon, procrastination becomes a daily habit, and you start labeling yourself as a lazy person. So, how do you break this cycle and finally overcome procrastination? There are tons of videos out there that talk about this, but most only address the surface-level symptoms, like deleting social media or removing distractions. While these might help temporarily, they don't tackle the real issue, the root cause of procrastination. And that root cause can be summed up in one word: inertia. In physics, inertia is the tendency of objects at rest to stay at rest and objects in motion to stay in motion unless acted upon by an external force. This is Newton's first law of motion, and it applies to tasks just as much as it does to objects. Starting any task, no matter how small, requires an initial push, a burst of energy to overcome that state of rest. The problem is, we often make that initial push feel so huge and overwhelming in our minds that we avoid the task altogether. Instead, we distract ourselves with quick, dopamine-fueled activities. To beat procrastination, we need to break inertia. And there are two key ways to do this. 1. Make starting as easy as possible. Reduce the stakes and take the smallest step forward. For example, instead of telling yourself, "I need to write a 5,000-word essay," which feels overwhelming, tell yourself, "I'll just write 50 words. The smaller the step, the easier it is to overcome inertia without relying on willpower or discipline. 2. Use the 2-minute rule. If you don't feel like doing something, commit to doing it for just 2 minutes. For instance, if you don't want to clean your room, put on a song and clean until the song ends. The beauty of this is that once you start, you'll often keep going longer than 2 minutes. Why? Because objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Once you gain momentum, it's easier to keep going. Think of it like pushing a ball uphill. The hardest part is the initial push, but once you get past that point, it's all downhill from there. That's why it's so important to make that first step small and manageable. You can apply these methods to almost anything in life, whether it's going to the gym, working on a side project, maintaining relationships, or anything else. As Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "You don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step."